Darkcast Network. Welcome to the dark side of podcasts.
What if the only thing that is holding you back from the life that you deserve is the story you keep telling yourself? Today, Ori Goldstein reveals how to break free from these stories and how to reclaim your true power. So stay tuned.
Are you ready to stop chasing temporary fixes and to start building lasting transformation? We're talking mind, body, and life. If so, you are so in the right place. This is True Crime Connections. I'm Tiffany, your host, and today helping us with this is the man known who can fix the unfixable, which I love. Please help me introduce Ori Goldstein. He is an evolution coach, a hypnotist, and a neuro-linguistic programmer. So, Ori, thank you so much for being here.
So excited to be here, Tiffany. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. How does it feel to be the man who can fix the unfixable?
Well, I feel like I need to give that like a little bit of like a preamble, just to like a little bit of a degree. I wish I could say I was some kind of magic wizard that could fix everything. But the thing that I really love is like when someone comes to see me, it's usually after that they've tried everything else. And the reason why I feel like I can say I can fix unfixable is I look at things from a very different way in terms of what are the patterns that you're running in your mind, what are the patterns that you're running in your body that keep you stuck. And my belief has just always been that people are just so stuck in their story, they've so associated with their past and their story that if I can work with them to just make that small little change, that tiny little shift and break that story, everything collapses away. And I've seen it enough times now, and I've worked with enough people that like I've just had that really amazing situation of seeing people change their lives where other people weren't able to.
That's really cool. I find it fascinating to be able to like literally watch somebody transform right in front of your eyes.
There's nothing cooler in the world. And like, I mean, like, it's obviously like most of my clients right now are mostly dealing with like large relationship issues or depression, substance abuse issues, whatever it is. But some of the stuff that I've always loved the most, pardon me, some of the stuff that I've always loved the most is like when you deal with someone like, let's just say, for example, a phobia. That's the one that like always is just so amazing because you have a person walking into your office going like, I'm so scared of snakes. And by the time you're done, they're sitting there and they're patting like a python. And they're just going like, I don't know why this doesn't scare me anymore. That's the kind of stuff that just, it's like there's nothing cooler that you can see that this isn't something that we just talk through. And when they leave, they'll think maybe something changed. You want to know by the time our session is over, something about me feels genuinely different. And it's such a beautiful thing. It's like, the biggest gift in my life is getting a chance to do this on a large scale.
That sounds cool. I don't want to pet no snakes though. I do not do snakes. Do you see a lot of clients with childhood trauma issues?
It's probably the thing that I've kind of become more specialized in. It's like, and and I think that we actually spoke about this a bit before we actually got on the call. It's like, just to me, it's like the philosophy I have is that every single person in this world is born absolutely perfect. And then they meet their parents in their environment, and then everything goes kind of like haywire from there to some degree. So whether it's like we discussed for you, like some kind of like generational trauma, or whether it was some kind of a large trauma, we're all just carrying around our childhood stories. We're all just carrying around these things from our past. And the way I kind of look at it is that it's you grew up in this environment where to a child, what a child genuinely needs, if it was in this perfect euphoric like utopian world, you would get all the attention you need, you'd get all the love you need, and you'd feel completely safe and comfortable in every situation. Of course, that never happens. And for some people, unfortunately, that is quite the opposite in the sake where like you've got a parent that's to some degree narcissistic, or you're in a bullying situation or something else. And so what happens is in that environment, you start normalizing the situation. So like let's just say you've got a narcissistic parent. So you as a child need your parent to give you all their attention. So you basically grow to become something strong. And when you try and give them your attention, just based upon their own childhood issues, what's going on for them, they turn it around and they make it about them, for example. And they sit there saying, well, oh my God, it's because I'm such a bad parent and blah, blah, blah. And what happens is in that moment, you sit there going, well, I needed attention, but I didn't get it. Maybe that's because I'm not important enough. Maybe it's just because I'm not a good enough person or I'm not worthy. And if that happens to you one time in your childhood, it's not a big deal. But when you grow through like a series of these things happening to you over and over again, you start developing all these thoughts in the back of your head, sitting there saying, I'm just not a good enough person. And people don't really care what I have to say, or my needs aren't as important as mommy or daddy's, or my needs just aren't as important as the world. Or it can go one level below that in terms of the fact that the world is just a dangerous place. And you just carry those stories through. And it's just, as it starts compounding through life, just imagine the concept of, imagine right now, you and I did a quick hypnosis session. And I said to you, Tiffany, I'm going to count to 3, click my fingers. When I do, you're going to wake up and you're not going to know why. Everything's going to feel about the same to you. You're just going to have this deep feeling inside of yourself of the world is a scary place. 1, 2, 3, click my fingers. I go, Tiffany, how are you doing? You're like, I'm doing okay. I think, I think I'm doing mostly okay. But what happens is that voice in the back of your head that sits there going, this world isn't a safe place, or I'm not good enough, or whatever your story is, you take that through into every situation, into every relationship, into every tiny thing in your life. And it just starts compounding. And so it starts off with just the world is a scary place. So it starts off with you going for that job interview. And so you don't say all the right things because you're afraid they're not going to want to listen to you. And so you get a little bit of a worse job, and you go into a relationship, and just because the world is a scary place, you sit there and you say, this person is amazing, but what do they want from me? It's just not right. I'm just going to go for that person that isn't exactly my top ideal, but it's good enough. And in this scary world, I just need someone to survive with. And so you just start becoming this person that has lower expectations of themselves and a very definite view of what this world has to offer you. And the thing I love, like we just said, is like, it's just like when you can break out of that story, all of a sudden, everything in your world becomes like your all you can eat buffet. It's like, it's all of a sudden, it's like, I get to get the thing. You mean I'm important enough to like put myself top of the roster? You mean it's like this world is actually a safe place and I don't need to be afraid of that bang that I heard from the car, because I was always afraid when dad would slam the door when he came home, that meant that it was time for a beating. When those things happen, everything in your world just becomes so much safer, so much more comfortable. And it's like, you can just see how people just naturally flourish. My whole logic is, you, like I said, you're born perfect. You already have inside of you all these perfect things about you. And then you just develop all these little stories that make it so that you're afraid to actually show your true self to the world. And so I created a nonprofit foundation actually called Human Evolution Movement, literally about that, about the idea of all I want to do is help you evolve, not to the grandest version of what the world wants, but to the grandest version of who you truly are.
And who you've wanted to be this whole time, because I feel like deep
Amen.
down, we all know what we want to be. It's just whether do we actually try to do it, or are we scared to do it? Are we telling ourselves that you're not going to be able to do it? So, I mean, yeah, it's finding your true self. And that alone is like, oh, I'm like thinking like the Wizard of Oz when it was all in like black and white. And then she's good, goes the color.
That's it. That is exactly it. And you hit the nail right on the head. It's like so many people, when we start our sessions, ask them, what do you want? And they're like, I don't know. And my answer is, yeah, you do. You're just afraid to say it out loud because you don't think you're going to get it. And it's like for me, for example, the example I always give is like, I remember when I was 18 and I tried to be a waiter, and I believe that my record is probably the most plates broken within like 20 minutes of being a waiter. I realized I was a terrible waiter, but on some level I could always talk to friends, and I always knew that I was able to like help people through tough situations. You have inside of you all these amazing skills. You know what is right for you. You're just afraid to admit that this is what you really are. So you just kind of like, you take on these things that just don't fit for you. Like I could have probably with time become a decent waiter, but I would never have been excellent at it because it's not what I was built to be. But when it comes to talking to people, when it comes to understanding how people tick, It's exactly aligned with who I am down to the core of me. I was built with my traumas, with everything that happened to me, with enough empathy, with enough understanding, with enough wanting to know how to make people better, that it makes me into that perfect version of myself. And when you open up to that ability, everything changes. So I believe you really hit the nail on the head. It's like, it's just becoming your true authentic self.
Right. And you have to know who you want to be. I think some people like put themselves in such a like shell that they don't allow themselves to explore. Like, oh, I could be this or I could be that. It's like you can be anything you want. Anything. You just, but I
Amen.
mean, obviously you have to try. And you have to give the steps to get there. You can't be like, I want to be president, and then wake up tomorrow and you're the president. Even though I think Donald Trump might have fucking did that. I don't know. But anyways, like, it's just for normal people that does not work.
I love that example. But we're not going to go there. I'm not going to let us go there. It's,
No.
but my logic is that it's just like when you get rid of the stories that tell you that you can't do it, of course, you're going to have to build the skills associated with it. Like, I mean, I studied for years and years to develop the skills necessary, but I was building upon the things that were naturally me. And my logic has just always been the fact that it's when you're doing the things that are right for you, it's not to say it doesn't work, but the work feels right. It's not even to say that it's not that it's hard. That's not easy or that it's hard. It may be hard, but while it's hard, you're like, you know where you're going and you know why you're going there, and it just feels like you're on the right path. It's Dorothy walking on that yellow brick road, and she knows that this is going to take her straight to the wizard. That's the thing I want for everyone.
That too. And I want them ruby slippers. Yeah. So you say some people that you're trying too hard. What does that mean?
So I basically got 4 tenets of my philosophy as such, but trying too hard is one of my favorite ones. And so what I mean by that is it's literally that. So like so in the word try, when you think about if I were to tell you right now, Tiffany, what I want you to do is I want you to try and lift your hand. Go ahead, just try lift your hand. No, you lifted your hand. There's a big difference, right? Like, so if you do something, you do it. But if you try to do something, it means that you're stuck in that place of like, you don't really know if you can or can't. So if I were to tell you, try lift your hand, you'd be like, I hope it lifts. I hope it moves now, but it doesn't. If you lift your hand, it's fine. If you don't lift your hand, it's fine. If you try, you know you want to, but you're not doing it. And so when I say someone is trying too hard, what I literally mean by that is you know what you want, but those stories are giving you all the doubts around it. And so it puts you in a place that you're trying to do it, but you're not actually doing it. So you say, I want to have the world's best podcast, but in the back of your head is the thought of sitting there saying, but do people really want to hear what I have to say? Will I be able to make money? Whatever it is. So you're trying to do everything, but all those doubts pile up upon you. And so you're doing everything, but at the same time, you're putting your foot on the accelerator while you got your other foot directly on the brake, and you pulled up the handbrake while you're at it. So you're trying your darndest, but at the same time, every part inside of you is sitting there saying, really, Tiffany, like that's cute. That's really, really cute. But mom told you that this isn't something real. At some point in time, you're going to find that you're just like, you're not that good. You're not ready enough. And to me, the difference is when you get fully aligned, you stop trying, because whether you succeed or fail, you're succeeding because you're progressing through, and it feels good anyway.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I like to think of it because, like, there is no such thing as failing. Because if it doesn't work, you learn something. So by failing,
Amen.
the only way I look at failing is you're not doing anything at all. You're not even trying. Because
Yeah.
then, I mean, how can you expect any changes to even happen?
Which takes me on to like the next tenet of my philosophy, which is what I say is you have no clue how to make yourself happy. And again, I like saying all these things in kind of like tongue-in-cheek ways, like you're trying to learn people like, what the hell are you saying? And when I say you have no clue how to make yourself happy, and they're like, what do you mean by that? What I mean by that is if you believe that in you creating the world's best podcast, let's just say, you would finally be happy. What you're sitting there saying is, in 20 years time, when my podcast becomes successful and I've got the $1 million in my bank account or the $1 billion in my bank account, whatever it is, then I'll be happy. And what that basically means is for the next 20 years, you're struggling and you're fighting through something for that beautiful aim in 20 years when you finally get it. Whereas the basic tenets of my philosophy of human evolution movement is you should be happy on a day-to-day basis. You should be doing the things that absolutely light you up while you move towards it. And as you said, you're going to fail. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to bring on the wrong sponsors. You're going to bring on the wrong guests. Obviously, you're going to bring on the right ones. Hi, guys. But at the same time, you're also going to do a few things that are off. But at every single thing that you do, because you're enjoying it and you're moving through the process correctly, you're enjoying the process, not because of what's going to happen to you in 20 years' time, but every single day feels like a gift from God. And that is what it means in terms of like, just make yourself happy on a day-to-day basis, doing things that line up with you. And you've won this game. It's that I'll just finish off with one extra thought around that. It's like, and I always call it like get hit by the bus scenario kind of thing, right? So I remember myself just rewinding back like 15 years ago, where I was always kind of like saving for the rainy day and always doing things, putting all the money into savings. I still have savings. It's not to say you don't. Saying that when those bad things happen, I'll be ready for it. So I was miserable and trying to take care of my future self. And nowadays, the difference, and at that point in time, had I been hit by a bus, I would have gone up to heaven if there's such a thing, and I would have been pissed off. You know, it's like, if only God you had left me on this earth for 15 more years, then I would have been happy that you took me too soon. Nowadays, I'm in the place of sitting there saying, if I get hit by a bus today, I'm going to turn around to God. I'm going to give the dude a high five. And I'm going to say, thank you so much for that gift of life I had, because I enjoyed every single day. And I've got all these great dreams that I was preparing for. And of course, I'm upset that I left too soon. But every day I lived was a beautiful day.
Make each day count.
Make every single day count. And it boils down to just be in line with your authentic self, right? Like, it's at the end of the day, do the things that truly resonate with you. Do your best to get rid of the things that don't as quickly as possible in whatever way you can. And you're winning this game.
Yes. I mean, shit, you don't even know if you're going to hit that $20 million mark or whatever, you know what I mean? So you're looking
Exactly.
forward to something to make you happy that might not even ever happen. And I was reading a
Exactly.
book and it said, it's actually not the end result that gives us like the dopamine. It's the chasing it. It's the anticipation of something. Because once we do achieve it, we're like, all right, now what?
Wowee, right? Like, it's all that happens is like you're happy for the day, the week, or the month, whatever it is. And then something in your brain says, what's next? Whereas my logic is, and the way I work with myself and my clients is, you should make it so every single day just feels like a real gift. Like, you're doing the things that matter to you today. And then please God, as you keep growing, and it's kind of like that saying of, if you don't grow, you die, right? So like, at the end of the day, do things that make you grow, do things that make your soul grow. But every single day should feel truly wonderful. And you get that beautiful dopamine hit. And at any point in time, if the Ferris wheel stops, you say, at least I enjoyed riding the horsey right now, instead of like, I was waiting for the fun part that was going to come in 20 years' time.
Right. Nothing's guaranteed. So you might as well enjoy the life you have now.
Amen.
Do you find people have like a lot of resistance when it comes to this kind of work?
I do, and it drives me nuts, actually, quite honestly. But it all makes sense, and like, I mean, it's just the way that we're built, and that kind of like boils down to, it's, since you took me into my philosophy, I'll just take you through the first part of it, which is my very first tenet of my philosophy is what I say is, you're immature. And again, like I say, everything tongue in cheek. And what I mean by that is, it's just going back to what we spoke about at the beginning of this conversation, in terms of the fact that you've got all these stories that you had as a child. And those stories got so ingrained into your mind that you literally have a 6-year-old making decisions for you because they're afraid of what mommy and daddy will say, or that they just don't believe that that the world is a safe place. And so I get why it happens. So when someone comes to see me and I sit there telling them, here's all the possibilities that you have, my logic is, at any conversation, even in this conversation right now, one of us is going to be more influential than the other, right? So if I can convince you about your possibilities, I can help you grow. But unfortunately, that little child inside of you that is so afraid, and that's what it really boils down to. It's not that you're trying to hurt yourself or anything else. It's a lack of certainty and a deep inbred fear that you had from a childhood trauma that created it for you. That basically what goes on is, that child is trying to convince me, Ori, I know that what you're saying sounds good, but I don't think it's safe for me to change. And so what happens is I have people resisting me, not because that they choose to, but just because that they're genuinely afraid of letting go of something and not knowing that it's kind of like that saying that I say to so many of my clients, that they would rather dance with the devil that they know than with the angel that they don't. I know this one. I've been to this feast. Sure, it's not that tasty, but at least here I know I'm gonna not leave hungry, you know? And I'm sitting there telling you, like, just if you just join me in the other room, you're gonna get to eat all the food you like at whatever quantity you want. And you sit there going, but that means that there's gonna be that little walk that happens that I might starve in. And I'm sitting there going, I get it. I get it. You've been traumatized and you believe that this world is dangerous. You're immature. There's just that little child inside of you that's afraid. And if you can just trust me on this and let me guide you, you're gonna move through and you're gonna be okay.
Fear, I find, is so healthy. Like, I've had to overcome so much fear myself. Like, going on video, when I say that terrified the shit out of me, but you don't grow unless you push your limits.
Amen. If you don't grow, you die, right? Like it's just one of those things. But like, let's use that as an example. So I get it. I mean, like I personally hate the idea of like being on video or anything like that. It's, but, and so just to rewind back, like this is just going back like 2 months ago. It's not a big deal really in that way. But to rewind back 25 years now and really aging myself, it was my best friend's 21st birthday party and I had to give a speech. And I stood up in front of the crowd and I went to give my speech and I said my punchlines and every single punchline just crashed. Like it's like I was just looking out at an audience full of crickets, you know, it's like are you awake in there? You know, like is something going on? And I just developed this belief in my mind of I'm bad at public speaking and I'm just not good at it. And so now to go back to my philosophy, it was a traumatic incident that happened to me. And I sat there saying, I'm bad at public speaking. So I developed the story, you're immature, sitting there saying, this is a dangerous place for me to go. My immature mind was sitting there saying it. Since then, I tried different things. I worked in Tony Robbins' corporation. I went out and I gave my speeches. I tried really, really hard to get past my fear of public speaking. And I did it. I forced myself out of it. And I did do the public speaking, but every single time I did it, I had the sweaty palms. I was uncomfortable. I was trying so hard to be the person I wanted to be because I knew that was the case. But that little kid inside of me was sitting there saying, but you know that even if you do well this time, you're still not a good public speaker, right? And so now rewinding back to like just about a month or so ago, it's like I'm part of a dance troupe and I hurt myself. So the dance troupe leader said, Ori, would you mind just going up on stage and just introducing the troupe? You know, like just tell them who you are, stuff like that. Not a big deal. I'm like, sure, not a big deal. And the moment that she asked me to do that, the voice in the back of my head sat there going, oh my God, you got to go up on stage. It's so dangerous. Like what's going to happen? But for the first time ever, after 21 years, another voice in my head came out and said like, what the hell are you talking about? Like you do podcasts on a regular basis. Everything is okay. It's like, even if you crash up in front of the stage, like, I mean, like, it's not that big a deal. And that cognitive dissonance, as I call it, of like that other voice in my head that basically told that child for one moment, you can shut up and you're safe. But that child kept saying, I remember like throughout the course of the night, as it kept coming up, the extra voice in the back of my head sat there saying, you're going to mess up. Oh my God, you're afraid of public speaking. And I sat there going like, no, I'm not. I'm not afraid of public. I messed up once. It's not that big a deal. And as soon as I managed to kind of like get the higher perspective of it and tell my child that he was safe and it wasn't a big deal, I went up on stage and I was like, hey guys, here I am. It's like, let me introduce the dance troupe. They're so great, blah, blah, blah. Here we go. And everything felt really great. But the thing that finally made that happen was that I got that little distance away from myself. And I finally realized, you know what, Ori, you're being immature. And I get you, voice. I get that you're scared, but I'm not going to live by your story anymore. It's like, it's just another story. I can go up on stage and I can speak, whether I speak to one person or 1,000 people, it's just going up on stage and speaking. And that little bit of difference, that little extra voice that I had to talk to myself with changed everything in terms of the fact that I just went up on stage and had a really great time.
Them little voices can be a But it's great when you can tell them to shut up. So
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so to me, like the way I kind of like describe it to my clients is I call it like the child self and the adult self. And the child inside of you is literally is the one that's been for like most of your life driving the buses, such as I call it. And it's in there saying, this is dangerous, people are bad, the world is a bad place, I'm bad at this, I'm not good enough, whatever it is. And all I do with people when it's all said and done is I help them break out of that story enough that they can basically start doing one of two things. Either comforting that child and sit there going, I get it, you went through hell, and I understand why you're scared right now. And then from the other side is not only to only be that gentle loving, but sometimes also give a tough love and sit there saying, it's okay, kid. I heard you. We're good now. You are safe. And sometimes you also need to be that little bit stern with yourself and give yourself the tough love and sit there saying, I heard you. I don't need to hear you again. And when you can go into that element of strength inside of yourself, even though it sounds like you're doing something mean, it's like and I'm sure that you've seen this with many of your other podcast guests have spoken about it, but it's what generally happens is people become delinquents, not for any other reason except for the fact that they never got that one person above them that left them feeling safe in a set of rules or in a circumstance where everything felt okay. And in the same way, that child inside of you that's afraid and freaking out, all that child needs is the adult inside of you to stand up, be the strength, and sit there saying, calm the hell down. We are safe. That's all the kid inside of you needs. Just to really believe, just even for a moment, you are safe, Tiffany, and everything is going to be okay. And it changes everything.
Well, yeah. I mean, it changes the whole narrative. Just getting
Absolutely.
to be able to silence that voice. I think that's all like the hardest part for a lot of people.
And I mean, that's basically the basis of my work as such. And what it really boils down to go back to what I was talking about at the beginning, is just really paying attention to how did that child form its stories in the first place and helping the child, actually working with a child to poke holes in that story. So for example, someone comes up to me and says, I'm not good enough. And I sit there going, so where did you learn you weren't good enough? And they go, well, that's what my father always told me. And I go, okay, cool. So your father always told you that you're not good enough. And can you remember specific incidents? And they go, yeah, between the ages of 5 and 7, when I bought home homework, whatever it was, my father always told me I wasn't good enough. And then what I do with them is I say, okay, fine, makes perfect sense. And can you understand how any person, when they are 5 years old and they're adult, they're Superman in their life, tells them you're not good enough, that they would believe it? And they go, absolutely. And I go, so it makes sense how you got your problem. Now, could you step away enough and look at that situation and look at your father for a moment? And now looking at your father saying you're not good enough, is your father the person that was your father endowed by God with knowledge about the fact of who you are as a human being? Does he know for a fact that you, Tiffany, or you, John, or you, Sarah, or whoever it is, are not good enough? Or is it possible that your father was looking at the world through his distorted vision of things, and that what he saw was his own way of looking at the world, of trying to make you a better person? And he wasn't telling you weren't good enough to try and mess you up as an adult. What he was trying to do was make himself feel stronger, or what he was trying to do was to make you into a stronger person. And you took that on as a narrative. But the truth is, if you can start poking holes in it and realize the fact that it was just this one man that just so happened to be my father that said it, but there's 8 billion other people in the world that don't think that about you. And as you both poke the holes in that, what happens is the child can all of a sudden start seeing the world through a very different lens and through a much more powerful perspective.
That's great. I mean, I think the whole world needs that, because we all hold on to negativity, and instead we need to be praising the positivity, because there's so much in all of our lives that we do right and we do positive. So, but instead we hang on to these negative narratives, and they shape our entire lives.
Exactly. And so what happens is we spend our whole lives trying too hard. Literally that, right? Like we're trying to become better people, but the voice in the back of our head sits there saying, but I believe more of the bad stuff. And that is really, as you can see, it completely leads into basically a human condition as such, where what happens is we're trying so hard to be the biggest, best versions of ourselves, but the kid in the back of our head sits there saying, you can keep trying, but it's not really going to work for you in the long run. And so like, let's even take this just a little bit further for a second. So let's just say, for example, that again, I were to hypnotize you right now and I were to say, Tiffany, I'm going to count to 3, click my fingers. And when I do, you're going to wake up and you're not going to know why, but you're going to be, not terribly, but you're going to be afraid of your glasses. You're going to remember I gave you this suggestion, but you're going to be afraid of your glasses. I go 1, 2, 3, click my fingers, and you come out of it. And I go, Tiffany, how you doing? And you go, I'm okay. I think. And I'm going to go, what's wrong, Tiffany? And you're going to go, my glasses just, I don't know why, I just feel uncomfortable with them right now. And I go, could it be because I gave you the hypnotic suggestion that you're afraid of your glasses? You go, no, that's not it. They just don't feel right or safe on my face. Because what happens is your brain is now trying to normalize it, trying to make sense out of it. And it's going to ignore the very obvious thing. And you're going to try to convince me that your glasses are actually dangerous. Like we just said, you're going to try to convince me of your narrative. And I'm going to sit there saying, no, Tiffany, it's because I gave you the specific suggestion that your glasses are going to be scary to you. I'm going to be like, no, Ori, I remember you said that to me, but these are really scary glasses. I don't think you understand. These are truly scary glasses. And I go, no, Tiffany, I told you the glasses would be scary and that's why they're scary. And you go, no. These things could break and puncture my eyeballs. You don't understand how dangerous these glasses are. And in that moment, what I would really have to do is I'd basically have to shake you. And that's what I have to do with my clients to some degree. I basically have to shake you and say, Tiffany, stop right now, step out of your reality just for a moment, step out of your reality for a moment and think about your glasses. Think about the fact that I gave you a suggestion that your glasses would be dangerous. And now all of a sudden you feel that way and you go nowhere. I said, Tiffany, listen to me. I gave you the suggestion your glasses would be dangerous. Remember that? Yes. Since then, you've had this thought, haven't you? You go, yes. And as soon as you actually connect the dots on that enough, what happens is you all of a sudden break free and you go, oh, I get it. Ori gave me that suggestion and this is why I'm feeling that way. It isn't that the glasses were ever dangerous. And that's the thing that happens. So my job with most people is, and that's part of my philosophy, it's breaking the story by having them really get back in touch with the reality and see it for what it is. And it's literally having to shake them enough to see things in a different way. It's, if you're up for it, could I actually share with you, like it's like a 3-minute video, but it's so powerful. And I kind of like want to take you through it in a very interesting way. Would you be up for that? Okay. So I'm just going to share my screen super quick. And I just love this video so much. Have you ever seen the movie Goodwill Hunting?
A very long time ago.
Yeah. So just to set the scene for Goodwill Hunting for a moment. So like basically it's Matt Damon and basically he was shot at when he was like, whatever it was, 21 years old. And he's a 21-year-old juvenile delinquent. And everything in his life, all that he wants to do is basically give the middle finger to the world and just tell the world that they can go to hell. And he's a genius and everything about him screams potential. But at the same time, he hates the world and all he knows to do is to just be a rebel and fight. And he ends up getting in trouble and he ends up getting Robin Williams as a therapist that tries to help him through it. So with that being said, I just want to share this one scene with you right now. So I'm going to share. And then I want to share audio, share window, Chrome tab, and let's do this. Okay. And please let me know if you can hear it. Can you see my screen and can you see my screen?
I can. Uh-huh.
Okay. So I'm just going to hit play and just let me know if you can hear it super quick. You're gonna fail me, are you?
I can hear it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, great. So I'm just going to hit play and then we'll talk after this video. I'll be right back.
Send it back to the judge for evaluation. You're not going to fail me, are you? Today. Valerian? Why? Have you had any experience with that? 20 years of counseling. Yeah, I've seen some pretty awful shit. I mean, have you had any experience with that? Sure ain't good. Her father was an alcoholic. Mean fucking drunk. Come home hammered, looking to wail on somebody. So I'd provoke him so he wouldn't go after my mother. No. Interesting nights were when he wore his rings. Yeah, he used to just put a wrench, a stick, and a belt in the table and just say choose. Well, I gotta go with the belt there, Van. And I used to go with the wrench. Why the wrench? Fuck him, that's why. You're foster father. So, what is it like? Will has an attachment disorder? Is it all that stuff? Fear of abandonment? Is that why I broke up with Skylar? I didn't know you had. Deb, you want to talk about it? No. I don't know a lot. You see this? Holy shit. It's still your fault. You can... It's not your fault. It's not your fault. I know. No. It's your fault. Then it's not your fault. Speak. It's your fault. It's not your fault. Don't fuck with me, all right? Don't fuck with me. Don't. Not your fault. It's fault.
Not your fault.
Yeah. So I'm obviously very high energy, but like I really want to take this into like a very interesting place right now, specifically for your listeners. So we were talking like before about the idea of that you're immature and that you're living in this made up fantasy world as such that you basically have all these old stories. So consider that scene for a second. So you've got a kid that as a young child was abused by his stepfather. So his stepfather would come home at the end of the day, put down a belt, a stick, and a wrench on the table. And I'm sure that the first time that the kid was beat, he said, just give me the belt, and he got beat by the belt. And the next time the stepfather came home, he said, here's the belt, here's a stick, here's the wrench. And after a few times, the kid said, you know what? I need to find my strength somehow. I need to prove that I am strong. I need to basically do something. And so something in his mind clicks, and he goes, the way I'm going to do it is, pardon my French, is fuck him. I don't give a shit. Do you know what, Dad? Hit me with a fucking wrench. I don't give a shit. And so the stepfather hit him with a wrench. And from that point forth, that new story was put into his head in such a way that everything in his life sat there saying that the only way I will have control in this world is by telling the entire world exactly what I told my stepfather. Fuck you, bring your best on me. I am stronger than you. I am more powerful than you. And you cannot hold me back. Go screw yourselves, all of you. Now, that made perfect sense in that household where he was abused by a stepfather. But now, as you can see in the story, it fast forward up until the age of 21 years old, is out of that foster house. And at the same time, he's still playing out the exact same story. He's still immature doing the same thing. And to take it back to the example of you and the hypnosis of scared of your glasses, Robin Williams says to him, it's not your fault. And this is the kind of thing that happens when you have clients that you ask, do I sometimes have the resistance? And he goes, yeah, I know. And Robin Williams goes, no, you haven't heard me. It's not your fault. And he goes, yeah, I got it. Listen to me, Will. It's not your fault. Not you, Sean. Don't you do this to me. Not you, man. listen to me. It is not your fault. And all of a sudden, a 21-year-old breaks down and cries the exact same way that a 6 or 8-year-old would in that situation. And all those old stories that he had inside of him finally saw the reality of, you mean that it wasn't me and it was my stepfather? You mean that it wasn't my fault? And that was a transformative moment in that movie where finally he got the cognitive dissonance to see it, to step away enough from the story and sit there saying, I don't need to do the same things that I did when I was 6 or 8 years old and have to be powerful. I can finally do things differently. And that is the moment, that one moment when you can finally step away from your story, see reality enough, and have someone point out to you, whether it's yourself or me or someone else, point out to you the fact that the story that you're living under is not the story that existed, that is real anymore. That what you created when you were 6 or 8 or 12 or 21 or whatever it is not the story that reality actually needs you to be playing anymore. That at the end of the day, you get to live under a brand new world. And now they're trying too hard. Think about the difference of him trying in a world where he had that story going on. Regardless what he tried, he would always sabotage it. He would always fight against people. Now, all of a sudden, when he finally realizes deep at the core of him that he is truly safe and he doesn't need to do that anymore, now he can go into every situation from now on forth and sit there saying, I don't need to let that kid drive my bus and drive me over a cliff every single time. I can actually be different. And
I
that is the
love how
difference.
I just love how he's like, I'm sorry. Like it impacted him. Like that's why I was the way I was, and I'm sorry. So
Isn't it
powerful.
amazing? Isn't it absolutely amazing? It's just like, it's because you know what you're doing is wrong. And at the same time, you're so stuck in the story, and you just, even though you know what you're doing is wrong, and there's that adult inside of you saying, stop it, the child inside of you they're saying, I can't. This is what I need to do. This is exactly what I need to do to survive. And it's, the child is fighting for survival. The adult is fighting for success. And so the survival instinct is going to be stronger. And so what happens is, every story that you have from your childhood that's burnt in through the abuse and the trauma is going to be that much stronger. And when I help you get that little dose of perspective and see things differently, you're going to realize how many people you hurt that you didn't even want to hurt, that you knew you didn't want to hurt, but you didn't know better. How many things you did wrong that to yourself and to others, you know that you did it, but the voice in your head sat there saying, shut up, I don't want to pay attention to it right now. I need to do this to survive. I'm going to keep dancing with this damn devil because this is what I've known and this is what lets me survive to tomorrow. As soon as you can see that this world is a safe place and you don't need to worry about survival, you don't need to live under the same story that you had as a child, the whole world becomes a completely different place.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Do you work with people over Zoom? Is this in person? How do you prefer to work with your clients?
At this point in time, it's really, most of my clients are Zoom, just for the fact that I've got clients all over the world at this point in time. And so just earlier today, I was working with a client in the United Kingdom. It works out just so great that way. And it's quite honestly, as long as there's a good connection, the internet nowadays allows for that pretty much everywhere. I just need to see the person and really see what's going on for them and really pay attention to their patterns. And so it works out perfectly.
Well, yeah, a lot of people do that nowadays over, because you got to meet people where they are. Because people need this all over the world.
Yeah, it just allows for so many things. It's like, I try and help people break through as many excuses as they have. Like, I can't do this because I have to drive 2 hours to go see him, or he's in another country, whatever it is. I'm like, I can send you a Zoom link. We can do this online. Like, stop coming up with excuses. That's the kid telling you that you need to stay the way you are. Get on a call with me and let's see what we can do right now. We can make this work.
Love it, love it, love it. If somebody wants to work with you, do they go to shipcollective.net?
So Ship Collective is actually a different thing that I'm doing right now. So I'll talk about that in a moment.
Okay.
But if someone wants to work with me personally, it's actually the best place to find me is origoldstein.com. and I'm sure that's going to be in the show notes. And that will just be working with me directly. But it's just because of my schedule and the amount of people that I can take on. Generally, for many people, it becomes very restrictive to be able to fit into my schedule and to be able to afford it. And so another thing that I find for a lot of people is just as they've sabotaged their lives enough, I can even do enormous changes for them. I can do enormous big things with them. But at the end of the day, if their body is just so beat up and they just have no energy, I can make you excited about life. But at the end of the day, if your hormones are out of whack and if you've just completely messed up your body, you have no get up and go to do it. So I ended up creating a new community with an amazing dietitian, Brittany Carpenter, and it's called Shift Collective, and that is shiftcollective.net. And what we do there, it's a very minimal monthly membership. And in there, basically what we do is we've got a group of people together and we've made it into this community where everyone is kind of like your cheerleader. You say what's going on for you and people help you through it. And at the same time, you can reach out to Brittany and me together. So I work with you on the mental issues, whereas Brittany is going to work with you as a dietitian, as a functional medicine dietitian, to work with you to also build up your body. So when you are actually making the trips, your body is strong enough to actually carry it through. And it's going gangbusters in terms of like the changes that you can make. And as you put those two together, it's just so synergistic. And so, and it becomes a lot more affordable because it's in a group atmosphere too.
Oh, I like that. You're touching all the aspects because you're right. I mean, you can do all the work you want on your mind, but if your body ain't up to par, I mean, you're leaving something
Exactly.
behind.
Exactly. And Brittany had it from the other side where she would work with people. So she, as a dietitian, worked with people mostly around weight loss and things like that. And so she would tell them what to do and she gave them all the right protocols to follow. But that kid in the back of their head sat there saying, but I don't want to do this, you know? And so she needed me just as much as I needed her. So it just became like the perfect synergistic blend. And she's just such, I really hope that people here do get a chance to just experience her too. If you want on Instagram, I believe it's at dietitian Brittany, and please do link it in the show notes. She's a firecracker and it's just, you can't help but love this girl. So it's just like, it's even if there's nothing else you get from the show, check out Brittany Carpenter. She's amazing too.
I'll make sure I put both links in the show notes so people can come and find
Absolutely.
you everywhere where you're at. Because that's some good stuff. Food for your soul and your mind. There we go.
Amen to that, sister. I love it.
Was there anything else you wanted to add?
It's my dream in this world as a whole is just to help as many people as possible. So like I reach out to me directly, even if it's just like through a message, and like I'll happily answer as many people as possible. I genuinely just want to share this philosophy with the world. So if there's any way I can help anyone, by all means, consider me as someone that you can definitely reach out to. And I love helping people through their issues.
Absolutely. And I love your energy. So anybody who needs a little pick me up, I think he's your guy. So
Thank you so much, Tiffany. It was really such a pleasure.
yes, it was so great to have you on. And I want to thank you again so much for being here and giving such good value in this episode. I think people are going to get a lot out of this.
It really was my pleasure. And I mean it, listeners, if there's any way I can help, by all means, reach out. I would love to.
Perfect.